There was a time in America where the American dream was alive, well, and kicking. In the 1950s, you can buy a house for $8,000 average. The median home prices were that $8,000. Can you imagine? The father went out and worked. The mom planned, did everything for vacations, hosted house parties, had the kids together, attend the PTA meetings, did everything. Big house, two-car garage, or two cars, which were probably around $2,000 at that time. A $2,000 car, can you imagine? That doesn't even constitute a used car today in 2023. But they were able to take their vacations, take beautiful family pictures, visit these monuments, visit the world, travel the country, go abroad. Mom, they had maybe probably a 2,500 square foot home. I mean, big backyard, pool. Like I said, mom hosted parties, mom brought everybody over. And all of this was brought on an $8,000 house. $8,000 house. That doesn't get you anything today. That gets you maybe a bathroom renovation, but that's about it. $8,000. That's it for that was the median home price. And the cars were $2,000 a piece. Can you imagine? And they did all of this on a median yearly salary of $3,000. One man going out, hustling and bustling through the day, providing for his family, send his children to private school, go out in the workforce, mingle, visit the taverns, the bars, travel, take family vacations, all of this on one man's salary. It was done in America only in the 1950s. And then they would have money to invest in commodities, maybe even buy a second home, a family home, a beach home, a vacation home, whatever you want to call it. That American dream, yeah, it's in our rearview mirror. It has been passing us by since 1950. And what's driving it up? Inflation. Central banks printing money, wrecking generations. Generation after generation is going to pay the price. And all of these people who putting these policies in play, they'll be dead and gone. And we'll be still saddled with the debt. But we're allowing these people to make all of these decisions for us. The United States national debt at this point is $31 trillion. They pay the interest to the Federal Reserve, only the interest. The United States government does not pay its full principal, $31 trillion. Every year they pay the interest on it. And these politicians stand up here, oh, well, trust me. I'll get the federal budget down. I promise. I promise. I won't leave the next generation saddled with debt. Meanwhile, they'll backdoor us because they have a debt ceiling and they cannot pass that debt ceiling. The debt ceiling was $28 trillion last I checked. They somehow raised it up. It's now $31 trillion in debt. In December 2022, Congress voted unanimously to raise the debt ceiling again. They added another $1.7 trillion. You tell me they not popping bottles behind the scene. Who gonna get that 1.7 trillion? Who gets it? It doesn't just disappear. They make sure the pendulum swings in their favor of wealth. Make sure that they family, their legacies are sealed. Meanwhile, the rest of us out here to fend for our own because most of us don't understand how to play the game. They blow past our budgets all the time. And then they throw everything in our face. everything that entices us, everything that keeps us distracted, everything that keeps us uninformed, any word you want to use. Some people don't care about these type of topics. They don't care about how money moves, who has it, who has the majority of it, who's going to benefit from it, who actually took the time to learn it, who actually know where to put it, how to hold on to it. What's your relationship with money? Does it come into your life? Does it stay for a while? Do you know how to invest it? Or do it leave out the door every time you get it? You can't keep it. You can't hold on to it. Not only that, you don't take that money and use it as a vehicle to invest in real tangible things with value. Most people, no, we much rather consume. We much rather say, I'll stunt for Instagram. I want to make my profile look good. I want my friends to think that it's that whole keeping up with the Joneses mentality that killed most of the people from the 1950s up. My neighbor my neighbor upgraded their home. I got to upgrade my home. I need to renovate. I need to do my curb appeal. I need to boost that up. I need my friends to think that my house is the best. I need to decorate my house the best for Christmas. My daughter has to have the best wedding. My child has to go to the best school. It's like, and guess what? All of this is done on debt. There's not just a lot of people out here just like really doing that with their own money. Rich people use debt as leverage. Poor people use debt is unfortunately becomes a hindrance because they've learned how to manage the money. They learn how, you know, to put money into the system and out the back door they get more. But that takes time, that takes dedication, it takes being offline, it takes not falling into the world of social media and getting immersed into commerce. Because everybody, you look at social media, everybody has it. Everybody's rich, but the statistics say everybody's poor. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Them numbers look sick. When you know how many people haven't saved for retirement, they have not saved for retirement. They have absolutely not one clue how they're going to walk into their old age. They either don't care, don't want to care, don't know, don't care to know. Who knows? But they're saddled with debt because they have the credit cards, they have the mortgages, they have the student loans, they have the auto loans, they have everything. They're saddled with it. And some never make it to mortgage status, but they have all of the other debts. But see, it's up to the banks to make sure that the commercial banks, the Wells Fargos, the Bank of Americas, the Chases, it's up to them to make sure that every time we walk up to that ATM machine, if you have sufficient funds in there, then you'll be able to withdraw a balance. But there's this thing called fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking is the minute you deposit, let's say $100 into the bank legally can loan out 90% of that $100 and you keep 10%. Now that's not to say you're not going to be able to go up to the bank and withdraw money out, the $100 out if you need it, but they've loaned that money out on the back end to probably me or whoever else walked in the door and asked for $100. Then they get interest off of me. And then the next person comes in the door, same thing, and they keep built the interest. They getting the interest, and then depending on what the interest rate is, then you supposed to get a little small piece of that if you say, by having a savings account. The money's supposed to come through the back door for you, but you get the smaller part of it. They making probably 10 times, 100 times that $100, while you getting the small percentage rate in your savings account annually. You can't save for retirement. You can't do all of these things that'll set you up for the next chapter in your life because you don't understand how they're operating the system. But the thing is, everything that they do, It triggers the stock market. It triggers everything else. It triggers the housing market because, like in 2008, these fools had the mortgage backed securities, the subprime mortgages. They betted against that, packaged it up. Good loans with bad loans, sold them off, got money off of that, bet against it, bet for it. I mean, it was a mess. And when that bubble popped, it was over. But guess who comes in to save the day? The Federal Reserve, the central banks, the United States Central Bank come in and get to plan with the interest rate. Now, when they start playing with the interest rate, that determines how much debt you're going to pay. Because your interest rate on your cars, your credit cards, your mortgages, everything, it goes up. Who determines that? The Federal Reserve determines that. But the United States Treasury gets the order from the Federal Reserve, and then the United States Treasury crank up the printers, load up the ink, load up the paper, and they print tons and tons of treasury notes. They get if they do physical notes, then they transfer those notes over to the commercial banks. And then that the commercial banks is the third party that then funnels the money out to the local community. And that's how the money gets funneled down. But that comes from the Federal Reserve. And like I said, whatever they're doing, it determines everything what we can do on Main Street. It determines the values of your home if you can afford a home. Because you could walk in there and say, oh, well, yeah, well, let me buy a home today. But if they jack up the interest rates next week, that contract, you more likely to void that contract out because now you can no longer afford that home. That home is no longer affordable to you because the interest rates are up. Something you could afford just last week is now unaffordable because they jacked up the interest rate. And you're realizing, oh God. But see, the Federal Reserve, they play that delicate balance with inflation. They have to make sure that there's no hiccups in the system. As little as possible. Stop the rain from falling. Stop the fires from burning. And stop the world from imploding. Because the United States is not the only country with a central bank. There's central banks. The United States has the main central bank, but not the only. They've outsourced it. They have central banks in every country. Japan, China, Russia, all of Europe have the European central banks. You name it. The only countries that don't have a central bank is maybe, countries that are on no-fly zones and things like Iraq and places like that. Enemies of the West, basically. They don't have central banks. And then there's probably like 3 or 4 other countries that just much rather not even deal with central banks. But they all over the world. And their job is to stop the pressure in the economy. When the economies are going bust and crazy and people filing bankruptcy and losing value on their homes and foreclosure notices and reduced prices and selling and people entering the market and making sure that digital money, because we have physical money, but digital money is a thing too. Digital money is more digital money than it is physical money. Digital money is money that banks have been legally granted permission to create just by pressing buttons on the screen and creating the money out of nowhere. So that the Treasury don't have to print it and deliver it. They just allow them to type it up on the screen. Boom. But the interest that you pay is real and for real. And they want it. And that's why most people that pay back debt realize they're paying more interest back. You're going to pay your interest back first, basically, before you ever tap into your principal. And that's inflation for you. But what the feds have is a tool called QE, quantitative easing, where they first used it in 2008 with President George W. Bush. It was supposed to be a one-time thing. We'll do this one time. One time only. It was created by the Japanese in like the 1980s because the Japanese have been going through their crisis. They've been going through inflation and an Asian demographic and losing their power over the world as far as manufacturing and influence and whatnot. So Japan been going through a restructuring. So Japan created quantitative easing first. We all know it from 2020 as stimulus money because at that point the only difference between 2008 crash when they first used it, in 2008 they used it, and the large too big to fail institutions got that money. They bailed out the businesses. That's why you had protests all around the world breaking out, Occupy Wall Street, all these because they were pissed off that they gave the money to the people who caused the bubble to bust and not the people who are suffering from the bubble being burst. So in 2020, I assume they learned their lesson because they decided to give people, the regular citizens, money so that they could ensure that the mob don't come after them. They like, oh no, if you think them people ran down on the White House, well, on the Capitol, and ran up in Congress, yeah, and they still complaining about that. You think that's something? Yeah, let everything burn and crash. Then you got everybody pissed off because nobody's exempt. Rich, poor. When the interest rate go up, down, or economies go boom or bust, everybody gets affected. The rich, their assets are less valuable. The poor gets poorer. It's a never-ending cycle. But banks have everything to do with it. And they keep triggering these bubbles, but this time it's not just a banking bubble. It is a personal bubble as far as everybody personal economics within their own household. They're over leveraged. People have taken out home equity lines of credit, meaning they were more than likely they had equity in their home. They decided to take it out. FOMO, the stock market running, is rallying. Everybody got money. Quantitative easing, remember? They came and they sprinkled money all, and they learned their lesson. So they get in 2020, they gave money to the people. They didn't just bail out the institutions. They said, no, we can't bail out the institutions without giving the people some money. So this time they structured in a deal to bail out people. Oh, and people went out and bought homes and all of that. But see, here's the kicker: how economics work. When they do quantitative easing and they give the money to the people, you could say, oh, that's a good deal. They didn't give it to the rich people this time like they did in 2008 and let them do buy back shares and buy bigger companies that are failing and absorb them companies and become richer and a bigger monopoly over whatever industry they're in. These fools, they have to keep it going. They have to. They don't want the bubble to burst. So inflation, the higher it goes, everything is linked to your credit card, your home, all of your bills. Everything goes up. It's a trickle effect. It's everything that's interconnected. Is all a system. It's not just globalization, everything moving on a global scale. It's everything moving domestically within one country or one state or one city. Everybody gets affected. Can't pay their bills, can't do all, everything becomes more expensive. The rich are less affected because they have more capital. Student loans, that's a whole nother topic. Student loan debt, that's another part of the government budget. You can't just say cancel student debt. That's $1.7 trillion divided among 43 million people that are in debt. Student loan debt. That don't just disappear. You can have these politicians running around here telling you, oh, we'll just get rid of $10,000. Yeah, that's all fine and well, but your grandchildren and your children gonna pay that $10,000 back, and they may even pay $20,000 back, depending on where inflation at the time. That balance get transferred over. It don't go away. You just kick the can down the road. You make your your offspring responsible for it. Meanwhile, the deficit continues to run up, continue to run up, and there's no sight in it slowing down. $31 trillion might not remind you. But like I said, here's the funny thing. When they give the money to us people to go, us regular folks to go out in the economy and spend and stimulate the economy, the money funnels its way back up to the rich anyway. These people go out and go buy real things, tangible things, homes, islands, you name it. Anything that increases in value, art, you name it, they put it there. Gold, commodities, you name it. And oh, it's a ton of commodities. They take that fake fiat money and they go buy real things, real tangible things. Travel the world, luxury vacations. They learn how to play the game. They bought income property. They generating passive income on that. All of that money then gets sucked into a vacuum within their family, their generation, their wealth pool, and it gets harvested and sent on to the next generation. And I must say, they become the superheroes of their family because they took the time to find out how to, how to operate the finance system, how everything works. Where is this money funneling to? How is everything moving around here? How are people getting their things? What things are being produced? What things have value? And they learn that. And for learning those things, they generated passive income. Can you really blame them? They make money and they sleep. Can you blame them? They make money when they sitting around a house watching a whatever on TV. They could be sitting there scratching their butt. It don't matter. They're still making money. They learned how to play the game, must I say that. And for the rest of their life and for the next couple generations, that money is going to rain down. It's going to get passed on to the next generation, locked up in trust funds and, whole estates and multiple. Oh, it's a whole game. It's a whole game. Meanwhile, for the average person who don't know, who's not paying attention, their assets dwindling away, or like I said, some people, the average James and Joes of us people, went and took out home equity lines of credit, invested in the stock market, invested in all of this, and they literally watching their money disappear. Now that mortgage that they took out on their home, it needs to be paid back. Now they're trying to figure out how, yeah, they took that money and put it in whatever. Nobody can time the stock market. It crashed. Everybody portfolio down. Everybody. And if you didn't, you got out at the top and you emptied your portfolio out. But if you left everything in there and did a little restructuring maybe, everybody portfolio down. All the tech stock hit. Everything down. Everything down. And it's going to continue. And all of that wealth is going to be transferred. We're in the era now where you have my parents, baby boomers, the biggest generation on planet Earth. When they boom, they're not called the baby boomers for nothing. It was a boom. After them men came back from war, they got hold of their girlfriends, their wives, they whoever, and they made babies. It was a boom. Well, my parents and their generation they're exiting the workforce. It was they entered big and they exiting big. And they transferring all of that wealth. They're preparing their wills, their trusts, or restructuring them rather. Transferring assets, finding, making sure their beneficiaries are in place. You know, All is different, and it's going to be one of the craziest transfers because they're going to have to transfer all of that wealth down to their people. And then, like I said, for the people who use leverage, who went out and got home equity lines of credit and lost their jobs, because more job loss is coming. They slowly losing them, but they still, it's going to go up. That's the one thing they hold on to say it's still not a recession. Oh, the jobs are still yeah, the job numbers are still low. That's great, but everything else around us is jacked up. But they hold on to that one sheet of paper. And meanwhile, like I said, people preparing. They're moving around assets. They checking their bond statements and they doing everything to make sure that their generation of kids, their next generation is ushered into wealth. They pull up to the red carpet of wealth and that money is transferred without any problems. That's because their parents took the time to inspect the financial market, check the temperature on things, find out how money worked. Find out what a trust is, find out what this is, find out what that is, and learn how to get it over to the next generation so that your kids and your grandkids don't have to pay that $10,000 student loan debt that you racked up in 2022 and it's now 2050 and your grandkids yeah. No, they're going to get the opposite. They're going to get more 10 they're going to get 10,000 more over because you got up early while people were asleep. You had the book open, you had your laptop open. You were trying to figure out things, connect the dots. I know the feeling. You fall down one rabbit hole and you learn how debt work, then you learn how this work, then you learn how that work, and then you before you know it, you done put the pieces to the financial puzzle together. While people were consuming, you were saving. It just goes like that. But you can't be mad at the people who learned. You can't be mad at the people who was buckling down, lights on in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning because something hit them. And now they up with their notepad open with the pen and paper. To it. Getting to it. Taking notes. Trying to put things together like, oh my God, that made sense. Oh, that makes perfect sense. This makes more sense. And grow your abundance, grow your tree of wealth so that you can take that and pass it down to the next generation and become the superhero in your family. I'm not saying that should be the goal, but that's a good analogy. Like, you know, you kind of seal your name in the legacy books. People moving on Instagram off of arrogance and all of that good stuff. What you putting out there? What you teaching your kid? What the next generation gonna get from you? Even if it's not money, is it something that you could sit them down and just talk to them about? Educate them, because I'm telling you, ain't nothing like getting into your adulthood and getting slapped in the face with finances and the reality of how the world works. I think you will want your parents there or some mentor or somebody there to help you along the way. And the earlier you get it, the more better off you are. Because when you learn it, the later in life you learn it, the more you're going to want to kick yourself in the butt. Because it's a lot of people that are unprepared. The number of people who are not prepared to retire, it's amazing. Which means the baby's not going to get nothing. Or they going to get the bare minimum. But if you, like I said, can't give them money, at least give them the education to give them a head start in life. A leverage, a foot up. Teach them. Don't let the world teach them. Don't let them step out there at 30, 40, 20, whatever, and get slapped in the face with it. Prepare them for it. It's something that we as parents owe them. We owe this to these babies. This generation didn't get it right. Okay, fine. Let's set it up to where the next generation can. Even if it is just giving them, because trust me, giving them the education more than giving them the money is way more important. Any rich person will tell you that. That's why you have the Warren Buffetts of the world saying, "I'm gonna just get, no, I'm gonna let my kids get it out the mud." It teaches them something. Let them learn. You be the teacher. Don't let the world teach them. It starts with you. So it's a long journey. It's a financial journey, but I have faith that we'll get through it. So I'll be here for as long as I want to be here. I'll see you guys on the next one.
Freezing outside, a little bit high on the feeling. Can't seem to focus.